More importantly, we want to get to the photo style menu. Now, it's up to you which way you want to go. Do you want to just use the left and right wheel? You certainly can. You can rotate the wheel if you want to, but I'll typically use the right arrow here. That gets me into my selection. See it up on top there? Now, I can use the touchscreen if I want to and take it over to natural, right? Monochrome. You need to experiment with these to find out which ones you like. Scenery. Portrait is what we're going to shoot in here today. Then you hear me talking about how we're going to adjust color and contrast. Here's how. We're going to hit the down button. There's your contrast, plus or minus. There's your sharpness, plus or minus. And this is going to be plus or minus 5, which really equates to about 50%. When you go max sharpness, it's not doubling the amount of sharpening. It's adding about 50%, right? That's, I think, why it says plus 5. That's not an official Panasonic reference, by the way. Then, of course, the color saturation, and we do use this a lot. So on the cameras that we're working at here, we're going to crank that up +2. Noise reduction, we really don't mess with noise reduction. Now, if you're doing something unusual, you may want to start experimenting with that. But the noise reduction is an extremely complicated set of automated filters inside the GH3. So use them with care, right? Now, when you're done here, we're just going to tap and hit the set button. See that? That saves those settings. And when I go back, they'll still be there, right? There's my +2 on the color. I'm going to go ahead and hit set, and that'll stay there until you undo it or if you do a factory reset. Next, aspect ratio. I work in 16:9 all the time. If you don't want to and you want to go square, 1:1, that's where you're going. You want to go 3:2, 4:3, it's totally up to you. We're going to work in 16:9 because our video, our HD video, is 16:9. And in fact, I'm very comfortable with 16:9. Picture size. Now, this is for the photo recording. We'll come back to the video recording. This is just when you hit the shutter button to take a photo. Do you want large, meaning using 12 megapixels, medium, using 6 megapixels, or small, using 2 megapixels? We pretty much leave it in the large size all the time. There are certain examples when we kick it down to medium, but not typically. Quality. Now, here you go. This is up to you. You probably know I'm not a RAW shooter. For me, the work I do, RAW takes up too much time and there's no advantage for it. Now, if you're into RAW, that's terrific. You will find out that there are some features inside the GH3, like eye dynamic, the dynamic range adjustment, eye resolution, the automatic resolution adjustment. Those features, data is not accessible in a RAW converter. There is no eye dynamic slider in Photoshop or Capture One or Lightroom. So just so you know, there are features that are more accessible to the camera than they are to the external RAW processor. So some folks may say they could actually get a better JPEG than a RAW. Whatever. I'm going to use the fine compression. That's the top one there. And if you wanted to, you can shoot RAW or RAW plus JPEG in whichever compression value you like. So I'm going with the fine quality. Metering mode, though, once again, that's totally up to you. I typically just use the top one. I could use the other ones if I want to, but no need. The camera does a really good job. Burst rate, it's up to you how fast you want that burst rate. If you use the fastest burst rates, you'll see that the file size becomes smaller. Auto bracket, come on. You don't buy a professional camera to do auto bracket. That's from film. They just put that on there to make old guys like me that used to shoot film happy. We don't do auto bracket. Self-timer, totally up to you. Here's an important one, the eye dynamic, the dynamic range. And we'll come back a little later to what dynamic range is and how this works, because this is one of the reasons you buy this camera. You should be adjusting this menu item every time you set up this camera because you need to give this camera as much data as humanly possible to make it work, right? And to make it work well. Face detect, for instance. The face detect in the autofocus tells the autofocus to focus on a face. But did you know it also triggers the auto white balance system to also focus on that face? And when it has a white balance question, meaning the person has a very different color value of white balance on them versus the background, it will decide more for the face. Why? Because you told it you want to photograph a face. Face detection is suggesting to the camera, we need to get great pictures of faces. It goes globally through the entire system, and it's very smart. That's one of the things that you need to set up for your pre-processing with a smart camera like a Lumix GH3. So let's set it up for this shot, shall we? We're going to have high eye dynamic, which is going to allow us to record the most highlight detail and shadow detail possible. If we were to use eye dynamic,